all through philosophical ideas. Welcome back to the second hour, and we're really excited to have James Hicks on today. James is the founder and CEO of Hicks New Media and a chief technologist at Nutanix. He has 25 years of background in IT and has a focus and a deep understanding of infrastructure, networking, storage, and cybersecurity. Nutanix really helps simplify cloud complexity with an open, software-defined, hybrid, multi-cloud platform so that you can focus on your business outcomes and new innovations without trying to figure out how to get it all done. James, so good to have you here on the show.
Alex Lindsay, good to see you, sir. It's been, as we were saying behind the scenes, it's before we had the gray hair.
Right. Well, yeah.
I start that way, right? I start like that. No, yeah. Good to be here. Appreciate you for having me on the show.
We talked about it. So do we know what year we ran into each other?
It may have been at I'm going to date myself. It may have been at a screensavers session.
Oh, really? At a screensavers?
Oh, my gosh. Right. So back in the day, and
what were you doing at screensavers?
I was just heckling from the back of the room.
Oh, right.
That's just what I do. That's what I've done for over 3 decades right in this industry. So because I'm right up the road from the Bay. I'm in the Sacramento area. So that's you, great. Leo, it was Callie at the time as opposed to Loria, but Kevin, back in the day again, dating ourselves, dating myself, and I should probably stop right now and just let you continue.
So from your perspective, what are you? We talked a little bit about what you focus on, but what are you seeing as the key trends that you're paying attention to today? I mean, AI seems like an obvious one, but AI and what other things that are you looking at?
Yeah, and I almost wonder if AI just as a 35,000-foot level is being too commoditized, just in terms of the conversations, right? Because there's generative AI and then there's other conversations about LLMs and things of that nature. But my focus, what I'm really wanting organizations and individuals to talk about and understand is about the ransomware piece, data governance. Mm-hmm. Understanding that your individual, your organization could be that next company on CNBC or CNN that unfortunately is become hostage to a bad actor out there, because the bad actors are out there working harder than we are.
And in some cases, AI fits right into this because, it used to be that you would get something from, a hacker from some other country, and it was very clear that they didn't know what they were talking about because none of the text made any sense. There was lots of errors, there were lots of things, and now I've already gotten some of these that I'm clear these are I'm getting speared. And it is definitely AI, that's writing these. It's much more conversational, much more much more contextual than what we've seen in the past.
Yeah, and training those models, right, has become much more streamlined, right? I'm not going to say the average Joe, but more and more individuals now have access to that technology. I mean, the earlier hour of office hours, you were talking about some older technology and things of that, and just how it's now become more easy to do everything from audio and video production and things of that nature. But now, again, anyone who has an account with ChatGPT or Perplexity or Voila or just Grok, whatever these tools are, we can feed in, or they can feed in that information and unfortunately do for good, do for bad. And organizations are becoming victim to that because, again, someone calls and says, Alex, I've got all of your critical data, and before you get it back, I'm going to need a deposit in XYZ account in wherever.
Well, and how, like, one of the things that and you can tell me whether this is accurate or not, like, one of the things I get prickly about is when people do a CC all, or CC everyone, not do blind CC.
Yes.
And I try to explain to them that you're handing, like, we have, I have kids, right? So we have teachers, and those teachers don't think about those things, and they just copy 160 parents, about their kids. And I try to, I'm nice about it, but I do respond to them and go, hey, you've just built a contextual connection between all of these people, that someone could use to, that is, you are patient zero, in a virus of trust, you really need to use that blind CC. And I think people don't realize how important that is that when someone can see the connection between you and somebody else, it makes it much harder for you to figure out what's true and what's not.
Interestingly enough, and you're spot on, right? Because again, even folks within my industry, within the enterprise technology world, still will do something of that nature. And I'm also that get off my lawn kind of guy telling you don't do that. Why are you copying everyone on this distribution? It gets into the wrong hands, or even a disgruntled employee. You never want to think about that, but there could be someone who maybe getting laid off, whatever the case may be. Going
and the problem right now isn't that they're even doing something, but it's that if someone gets their email hacked, and then now with AI, if I have 60,000 emails, if AI jumped into my email and hacked it and just went through that, it could build a web of understanding of what I'm doing, talking to, contextually having conversations with me that would be almost impossible for me to understand what is true and what isn't.
And you wouldn't even realize that was happening because it could look like you coming from you to the recipients. So again, you're completely blindsided by those actions. So that's reality. That's where we are today. And again, it's just being vigilant. Again, I say the word data governance, being really
Well, how
conscious.
do you protect against that? Like, how do you protect against those kinds of attacks?
It's continual evolution of training and information, right? Giving people this type of a conversation about these other ramifications of what it is that you do. Having processes and tools in place on the back end as well to protect the innocent from doing things that would probably get them in trouble. So having tools in place that would probably flag emails as they go out, or actually monitoring systems as well. A lot of times folks may not want Big Brother to be watching them from an organizational perspective, but again, we've got to protect ourselves from ourselves a lot of times. So,
well, I mean, when someone got hacked in LastPass at home, this it's your only job. Like it's your only job. You
had one job to do.
Like you work in security for a security company. Well, but it's hard though. I know that I worked on some highly secure projects, and in those cases, we are being tested all the time. We're getting sent emails. So part of it is that we're constantly getting sent emails that if you hit the wrong button, it goes, "Hey, you could have just taken everything down." How often is that part of the training?
That's part of the training, and again, it's change management, change processes in place. I was just getting ready to say, so I was recently at the CrowdStrike conference, FallCon, and a lot of folks within technology realize and know and remember what happened at CrowdStrike. They took half of the internet down right over the summertime,
right?
And I really wanted to be a kid in the candy store at the keynote and just to hear and see if they fell on the sword. And to their credit, they did. Right. Again, doing a system change, a global change that caused the havoc that it did across the internet. But again, updating processes, not being content with the way we've done things for a long period of time, but actually evolving and iterating as things change, as new systems get put into place, new infrastructure gets put into place. So it's really having that, maybe a governing body, having individuals in place and also automated algorithms in place that manage to make sure that as we evolve as an organization, that we have these checks and balances in place. So it's a never-ending cycle. Folks, keep up on, like I heard you talking about even before the last hour, keep up on your LinkedIn, keep up on your training, keep up on your certification, because this is continuing to evolve in terms of how we need to be monitoring and taking advantage of situations that come up into play. Right, you really have to be aware of what's going on and be two steps in front of the bad actors.
Now, a lot of people talk about what platforms are more secure than others. Is there really any difference between them?
Back in the day, we would say that, of course, the Mac OS was hacker-free, but the bad guys have gotten around that. I am still a member of the cult of Mac. I gave Steve 10 good years. Behind me, you probably see I've got his Crazy One speech, trying to make it put a dent in the universe.
You worked at Dell for a long time, didn't you?
All right, now you're going to make me date myself. Again, I shaved today, so I took all of my Movember beard off. But okay, so I gave HP 20. Right. Back in the day when I used to hang out with Lou Platt back in the, so 20 years at HP, I gave Michael Dell at Dell, I gave him 10.
Right.
And I'm a member of the cult of Mac. I gave Steve 10 years as well.
There you go.
Yeah. I'm just dating we're starting off this, but this is supposed to be a good show. This was supposed to be an uplifting. Now you've got me.
But so you've seen a lot of all of these things, and now, and I think that it does feel though that, you know, Apple probably does a little bit more because of the way that they manage it, they're slowly tightening these security nooses.
Yes.
Like they're not turning all the dials all the way up to, but every year it feels like it's a little bit more closed than it was the year before.
Yeah, and Apple, it's very a lot of smoke and mirrors, right?
Mm-hmm.
Apple, consumer first, obviously, but every experience from any Apple device has to be the exact same, and that does take a closed, controlled ecosystem to maintain. That's a very hard thing to do. What Apple does versus Android, or versus. And again, I don't want to get into the war or the conversation about that. But by making that integration of AirPlay and handoff and all of those things, those tools talking seamlessly together and processing on device as opposed to in the cloud and things of that, and making it seamless to the end consumer.
And how important is related to that? I mean, one of the things that we start to see more and more of is biometrics, right? And so,
yes.
So the biometrics is, like it used to be. The only time you saw biometrics is if you had $10 million in the bank. I've never had $10 million in the bank, but I have friends.
Listen to Alex. Well, ladies and gentlemen, he's over there talking about his accounts there. Okay,
I don't have $10 million, but I have people that I know that they go, oh yeah, they send you this little eye scanner, so that every time you want to deal with your account, you have to look into the thing before you can open the account. And so that biometrics, what was something that was really only for high, value or high, rich people, that now it's like, it's everything, like it's face scan. It's, you can use your, all those things, are coming together. And, in many ways, doesn't that make things in many ways more secure, because it's saying, hey, I need to validate that you are there and you are a person before I do something.
Yeah, the face scanning is much more secure than even something like a fingerprint, things of that. Because I used to work in the data center world as well. So I was part of the first data center in Northern California that installed a production instance of Twitter. And I'll always call it Twitter. I'll never call it X. So again, you can put me on about that. So again, getting into the environment was all facial recognition, and with Face ID, again, just having that proof of identity, that proof of you, because fingerprints can be spoofed, but no one else looks like Alex. No one else looks like James. My kids can't even get into my phone anymore. When they were kids, when they were much younger, they could, but no longer at this point. But that again is that additional layer of security, especially when we're doing financial transactions on these mobile devices. We live on these mobile devices now, so we've got all of the contact information. We've got all of the financial information. Unfortunately, folks may have passwords and social security numbers and things of that nature on these mobile devices. So
isn't a lot of these making it easier to have better, like, for instance, I remember when I used to have like 3 passwords. Like I just used 3 passwords for everything, a long time ago. And then about 15 years ago, I got LastPass, and now you have a hash, and whether it's LastPass or 1Password or Apple's new passwords or Google or whatever it is, everything has a hash. It's a random hash. And if people aren't doing that, you're crazy, by the way. Like you're not, everybody needs to have, every news site has a new hash, in there. And then you can tell me whether my approach is strong. I don't try to keep track of for a handful of the things that I need to do to get into it. I have a phrase from my childhood that nobody would know. That's very long. That that is usually on a weird amalgamation of something, not something from a movie, not something from something else, and I type that phrase in, and I've never spoken that phrase out loud, and I won't, and I think that, but that's how I get into things, and I have a couple different phrases. It's not one, but the thing is, it's much easier to remember, and you can make it really long, which makes it much harder. Is that a good approach to that?
No, I mean, what's interesting is I do very similar, and again, I won't tell my phrase, because 2 people on this planet know what my phrase is, but also having multiple. Because there has to be a contingency as well to security. It's just like backups and recovery and data recovery and things of that nature. I maintain copies of photos and music and stuff in multiple clouds. So taking it from a consumer perspective, obviously there's the iCloud, there's the Google Cloud, but I maintain a local copy plus redundancy. But that's just me being in this industry. But that's a conscious activity and conscious effort that yourself, myself, and a lot of other folks are doing that really is no longer a want, it's now a need. Because again, there are so many opportunities to get into information. There are so many phishing instances. There are so many times where we're getting that call where someone is saying that they're your lost grandmother or they're your lost family member and they need some money, right? So, and they're getting very systematic about pulling at the emotional strings and causing folks to react. And once you get one reaction into an environment, then you can subvert other security measures. So having multiple security and hash codes and things of that nature, having multiple locations where you store your critical information, that's again, it's no longer a want, it's now a need.
And do you
not trying to scare anybody, but just be vigilant and be conscious of how we maintain our data, because data is the most important.
And to realize it's always going to be human. I have some folks that I know that are red team, and I asked them, I said, who stopped you? Like, because they get hired to do red team on different companies and everything else, and they said, oh, I never get stopped. Like, it takes sometimes it takes hard, takes a little longer, or it takes a little bit more work. But he goes, never been stopped ever. And I said, well, what's the, how do you get through? Is it, I was asking for is it algorithms? And he goes, no, it's always somebody. Somebody always makes a mistake. Somebody, and he said, somebody is always trying to be nice. Like, that's where he said, it's not that they're stupid. It's not that they're, not like, but he goes, he said, someone's always trying to be nice. They don't want to have a conflict. They're going to let you, they said they'll let you glide in, past, when they open the door. They are going to, I'll just give you this password, or I'll just give you this
that's it, right? It's the tailgater, right? Yeah.
The tailgating he said tailgating is like the number one way that they get in is tailgating, and just going, I forgot I just didn't have the thing, and they're like, I got you, and everything else, and it's that, and in a lot of big companies, you'll see the funny thing he says there's a sign on the door that says no tailgating. Like literally, there's a big thing that says don't let anyone tailgate. And he goes, and I can still talk my way in.
Like, you, right? Oh, yeah.
And it just, so I think that always becomes, it's always a human error. Do you think that we're going to get to a point where you have to validate everything you send someone? Like, if you can turn it on and say, like, I'm me when I sent you that text, or I'm me when I send you that email, and it's using biometrics, and so that someone can say, I don't know if that was really Alex. Is it validated? And asking for that, like in that communication.
Yeah, that's probably a 3-factor authentication, right? Because we've got 2. But again, that's going to be that tertiary or a deeper level of requirement of validation and verification of identity. Yeah. Do I think we'll get there within the next short, mid, and long term? And again, in technology terms, that could be 6 months, 8 months, a year, 3 years, whatever the case may be. I see that more as a midterm deployment.
Right.
Because then you start getting into privacy conversations, deeper into privacy conversations and consideration and things like that. And again, from an oversight side.
The hard part is that you have people who don't want to be caught doing, not caught, but just don't want to be connected to absolutely everything they're doing. But at the same time, if you don't do that, then you don't know.
You're left out.
Like that's you don't know if it's going to work or not, or you're at risk, so it becomes a really complicated problem.
And I hate to interrupt you, but again, if you want to be a contributing member of society, as we are today and tomorrow, you're going to have to be able to bend and flex and be a part of these systems and these ecosystems and these changes.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Again, if you're going to want to do mobile transactions, especially financial transactions, if I'm going to want to communicate with someone using iMessage, WhatsApp, what are these tools all that are encrypted and things of that? I'm going to need to validate that James is sending a message to Alex. I'm going to have to validate that I want to send you something via Venmo, or what are the kids using nowadays? What's the other? If I want to send cash and things of that across the internet, there's going to have to be additional layers of validation and verification. 2-factor is nice.
Right.
It's gotten us to this point, but the bad actors are starting to understand how to circumvent those systems as well. So something's going to have to come into play within the next midterm, I would say.
Well, and I think that while we, people get very concerned about, government, security and so on and so forth of what is our government watching. But as someone who's worked all over the world, I know that the reason that I don't have walls around my house is because of NSA. like the NSA, like the NSA is why we don't have.
Alex knows too much.
We can talk about it, but it's metadata is a huge piece of that puzzle. Not even looking at what we're saying, but metadata is a massive part of what keeps us safe. In a lot of those areas. So I think that we have to always take into account that some of that security is necessary. I still am careful about what I say,
Yes.
online.
Yes.
But I sometimes, but I think that after doing some work that I did, I realized just don't be interesting. Like,
just be very monotone.
Just be boring.
My problem
just live
is
a boring life because it's so hard. Like I definitely was in this whole when Colorado put out they had a new rule to get your driver's license. You had to give them their thumbprint, and I literally melted my thumbprints on a pan so that I wouldn't have to give them to them. This is 30 years ago, and then 2 years later did some work that I realized, never mind. like it's not worth it. Like you can't, resistance is futile.
That's it.
Stop worrying
right.
about it. But the and how much of a danger do you think that is, as far as not just people spoofing you, but people, tracking everything that you're doing?
It's a danger, again, to be cognizant and be aware. And I'm not here to come with doom and gloom conversations, but just really come with a conversation of being, again, conscious of our actions and our activities, just to be more focused on what we share and what we don't share. Just as you said, you don't have to be monotone, you don't have to be non-interesting, but again, just be aware that those types of things are being analyzed and scoped by people out there who may have ill intentions amongst them. So
you just don't want to provide points of leverage.
You don't, right? You don't want to be you want to be friendly, you want to be nice, you want to be a good person, but again, let's not open the kimono too much. Yeah. Let's keep some, the friends and the families and the acquaintances. Let's have kind of some degrees of separation amongst ourselves.
In some ways, we're almost trying to get back to. There's some place where we're trying to get back to. In a community, it took a long time to be known. It took a long time for you to, and oftentimes you would move to where I grew up. Someone would move in and they were still new for 20 years. Like they were still like, oh, they just got here, because the family had been there for 3 generations or 4 generations, and you knew their family and their family and their family, and there was a certain level of trust. And I think that in some ways, a lot of these biometrics and some of the other things that we're doing in our, networks, comes, to a that we need to somehow get back to something like we don't trust someone the first time we see them, and in the same way we don't see them online. We've got a couple questions rolling in. Let's go to those and we'll come back to this conversation. Let's go to the first question.
This one's from Douglas Carmichael. With Broadcom significantly increasing VMware license costs, have you seen increased interest from customers in migrating to Nutanix or Proxmox?
I did not set this question up, but it's a great question because in the day job while working at Nutanix, of course, we are seeing incredible growth, incredible interest, right? And just having the conversation. And I want to change the dialogue. It's not VMware. VMware, a fantastic company, fantastic organization, fantastic people. It really is a Broadcom tax. Broadcom coming from a financial perspective, just charging out the roof for functionality and services. So it's a Broadcom concern and not a VMware, but Nutanix is seeing a lot of interest because Nutanix has a hypervisor alternative that a lot of organizations are looking to.
What a hypervisor is.
Yeah, so from a virtualization perspective, again, so going from physical nodes, physical boxes, physical infrastructure within a data center, being able to actually segment and segregate physical infrastructure and have virtual systems, virtual machines, virtual instances running on a single piece of hardware. So I can have multiple workloads that are using a finite set of resources on the same box that do multiple activities, multiple jobs. So not just one computer in the data center doing one thing, but one computer in the data center doing multiple activities and serving multiple functions and being able to divide those resources, the RAM, the storage, the networking components, and things of that.
Right, and because a lot of times people aren't fully utilizing the hardware that they have at any given time, so it's just a matter of becoming more efficient with that. Craig, you wanted to add something to that?
Yeah, I was just going to say, this is part of what I do day in, day out, and the chaos that Broadcom introduced to this whole market. You got to understand, they've got like a 60 or 70% market share of this environment, and for Broadcom to just blunder and give everyone signals that their price is going to double. There's going to be a lot of case studies out of this.
Well, this is why everyone pushes against monopolies, right? Is because they get to a certain level and then they just start jacking up prices very quickly.
Yeah, well, I mean, as James said, VMware is an amazing company, great products. In fact, the biggest issue right now is VMware's got 50, 60 different products. There isn't one place that everybody can say, oh, I don't want to deal with Broadcom's pricing, so I'm going to switch over to company X, Nutanix or wherever. Nobody covers all of those 50 or 60 products. Right. So depending on what they use, they might easily switch some of them, but they're going to have to piecemeal it.
And that's the challenge, right? I mean, it's the unfortunate challenge, unfortunate opportunity that a lot of these organizations are being put in the lurch on this. Because again, they're getting that bill from Broadcom that's 3, 4, 5, 10 times higher from a licensing perspective than they were paying before. And
it's crazy.
It
seems crazy.
It hurts, right? Again, you empathize for these organizations, but there are a few answers out there. There are a few alternatives.
Yeah. Next question.
This one's for me. Is anything happening in the automated testing sector with respect to AI, machine learning at all to help improve the quality of tests to uncover problems, thinking back to the disastrous CrowdStrike issue?
More vigilance in terms of the organizations themselves. Again, like I was saying, I was at Falcon and the CEO and founder for CrowdStrike, they fell on the sword and they admitted that we had some issues. And kind of like I was saying earlier with Alex, that just being more cognizant, conscious, and more vigilant in terms of before pushing that enter button or before submitting that change, that our processes, our change management are in place. Now, do we even really? I'll ask the question back to the person. Do we want all of this to be automated? Or do we still, again, like the conversation Alex and I were having, do we still want to have that human intervention? Do I still want Craig's eyes looking at this document before we actually submit it, before the algorithm initiates the change? So it's a conversation, again, about oversight, about governing boards, about regulation. I mean, it starts blossoming out into that kind of conversation as well. Do we want the robots to take over completely?
Well, and again, one of the things we found with a lot of the automation that we've done in the past is that where we see it work best is when the computer is simplifying the data coming to the human and the human's making the final decision.
Yeah.
And so the computer can give you a lot more, the AI or algorithm or whatever is going on there can hand you a lot of data that makes it easier for you. Now, you still could make the wrong decisions, but, again, and this gets back into someone skilled at what they do can sometimes see, what those things are. And that's the hard part with data is that, you get the wrong data, you make the wrong decisions as well. Yeah. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I'm not proposing that we just let computers make the final call, because I do think you need a human being to verify. But I'm more interested in the technology available right now, and could this type of newer technology help with automation? Because we have automated tests now; people can script stuff. But with more of the advanced stuff with machine learning, because AI is good at determining and figuring out patterns, could that be helpful at uncovering problems so a human being, being the last person in the chain, could go, oh, I didn't actually anticipate that? Yeah,
no, I concur with that 100%. Right, again, help me to do what I need to do better and more efficiently and more effectively. Right, give me the pretty chart that actually says these are the pros, these are the cons, these are the consequences, these are all the ramifications of making this particular change, and then allow me or allow Alex to make that decision in terms of, do we implement this into the environment? So I helping us to be more efficient in our daily task, helping us to be more the speed to market as well is where a lot of these algorithms and where these tools, that's really what all this is about anyway. This generative AI, artificial intelligence, these tools are really to help us do our thing, whatever that thing is, more efficiently, more effectively, and less error prone as well. So I agree with you on that.
And even just thinking about things, like one of the things that I've really gotten into Notebook LM, with Google, and the ability to throw a bunch of documents in there, and I'll throw a pile of documents in there, and then I just start I don't care. The podcast thing was what everyone talked about, which is pretty good. It's a little over the top, but generally, I gave it a book that's probably 400 pages long. And it did a 15-minute, and it was the best description of that book I've ever heard. It definitely did. It was a little superlative. Like there was a lot of they're talking about some really wild stuff.
Some big words in that one, huh?
Yeah. Well, it's just like this was really important, and this is really exciting, and about something really boring. And so I think that it has a power. But what the real power is I throw manuals into it. So I've gotten into this habit with Notebook LM. Is I throw a manual into Notebook LM, let it process it, and then I just interrogate it in real time. How do I do this? How do I do this? How do I do this? And it just comes up with the answer. And it's not hallucinating. Because it tells me where it found it. But I don't have to figure out my search terms. I don't have to, and it oftentimes responds in plain English. Just go to here, click this, go to the menu, go down, go over, and it figures that out for me. And I think that those are. I think that one of the things that's really important is that I don't think that we understand how close all of this is from ending. And I think that that's the everyone here knows that I have a slight obsession with coronal mass ejections, and it's because I find it fascinating that no one thinks about them at all. And there's a 12% chance that a coronal mass every decade. There's a 12% chance that a coronal mass ejection will kill half the Earth, kill half the people on Earth. And you're just kind of 12% is a really high number. And you see it that's not a rumor, that comes from NASA. And so you're just wow, we're not paying attention to something. The way I think about that is the biggest fear I have is not that AI is going to take over. It's that we're all going to not be able to do anything anymore. It's going to do all the things for us, and then we're going to be kind of in WALL-E, on our little scooters, unable to actually execute anything.
I mean, to raise the energy up in this conversation a little more.
No, but I
Alex
think
is destroying. It's like Whopper, right? What was the movie?
Exactly. I think that the opportunity there is that the is how important it is as we get all these tools to still. What I use them for right now is to learn. It's learning and getting better at what I do is what I'm using those for. Less than doing it for me. Right. And I think that's where the real power is, because I've never learned as fast as I am now. The ability to absorb information now is at a level that it's really hard to describe if you're using them well.
Yeah, that's a real, again, conscious mentality that you have there as well by leveraging the technology, but not necessarily relying on it to be the end all to be all.
Right.
And the fact that we've gotten so far in such a short period of time, I'm looking at the folks here on the panel as well. You probably could remember back when we had the static Encyclopedia Britannicas in the living room, right? And that was the source of reference. But again, it was static.
Right.
But now we can put that prompt into these models and generate real-time information with those references back to resources and things of that. And it's continuing to evolve. It's continuing to get better. It's an exciting time in such a short period of time that we've gotten to where we are today. And it's going to continue from a hockey stick perspective just to grow and get better.
Yeah, absolutely. Next question.
I keep dating myself. It's bad.
Craig McFarland in Boston, Massachusetts. How has it been working at Nutanix with this year's chaos created by Broadcom?
Go ahead, Craig. Do you want to add to that before? We kind of talked to it.
Yeah, I didn't mean to pile on. I guess it's more the question of whenever you get a company, and I'm partial to startups, but whenever you get somebody in a market that's dynamic and changing culturally within the company, it's this huge opportunity, and it's really, I find it a lot of fun to see and for people to jump on. And knowing that Nutanix has this huge opportunity, how is it like working with the team, looking at all of those new opportunities?
It's I like that there's not too many layers. I like the fact that, again, I get to sit in various conversations that really drive strategy, especially around various pieces of the platform. Right, the platform has many pieces, from a storage side, from a network side, from a database side, from a containers and Kubernetes side. But the fact that I get to sit in various conversations with various directors, various VPs, various senior VPs, from both the technical side and from the sales side, again, drive strategy, drive messaging, really is refreshing. I love my past history, again, at the Apples and the Dells and the HPs, but getting on the Amtrak and going down to San Jose once in a while, sitting with my senior vice president from the technical side and talking about what's the next iteration, evolution of something like Data Lens, which is, data governance and data blindness awareness for resources within an environment. That's
Explain that a little more. What's that mean by a Data Lens?
So Data Lens is actually a premium product that is offered from Nutanix that allows you to eliminate what we call data blindness. If I ask a system administrator, a system operator within the environment, how many files do you have within your environment? What's the total capacity that's utilized? How much before you need to start moving data from on-prem to off-prem to a cloud provider or something of that nature? And a lot of times you don't have those answers directly in front of you. They're on an Excel spreadsheet or they're in somebody's file cabinet. It's a water cooler conversation. Data Lens allows you to see into that information real time and analyze, is Alex logging into the environment at 2:30 in the middle of the night to some particular files and folders and infrastructure pieces that he doesn't have access to? Are there permission issues that we need to look at? Is something open too wide? Is there like a 777? Is access too wide for a particular environment? Do I have those ransomware issues happening? Do I have someone trying to get into my environment? So it monitors that. Data Lens really is, again, that premium platform or premium tool that monitors all of the storage infrastructure within the environment and gives you those analytical insights to the data. How much capacity do I have? How much files do I have? Who's accessing the environment? Are there any anomalies for security concerns and things of that?
How do you deal with, there's this balance between what I call a data hole. So anything that's not in electronic form to me is a data hole. like I don't write notes on paper ever, because I'm like, when am I going to find that again? And so I need, so I don't write on it. But at the same time, if I lost everything, it would be in electronic world, it could all go away pretty quickly. How do you balance the need for things to be in a physical space, but also live in a digital world?
That's a great question. That's a great question, which I may not have a full answer for, because I also walk around with this Apple Pencil 100% of the time. And that's just where I keep all of them. Because again, I maintain multiple copies of that data. So I'm not only relying on one particular location. Should something go down, should AWS go down for 8 hours, like it typically does, right? And I lose access to bits of information, I have redundant copies of data that I'm working on. So I understand the nostalgia. I understand, again, the draw of actually having physical copies of assets. But then again, I'm a contingency-minded, contingency thinking person in insurance. Should the house catch fire? Should something happen, and again, I lose those assets, or should I forget to lock the safe and something gets missing and things of that nature? So I've gone 100% digital. I've gone 100% digital. I've gone 100% EV as well. So I'm just listen. I'm just bucking the trend all the way, buddy.
That's great.
Right. I will never buy another gas car for me. So again, that's a whole nother conversation. But yeah, that's where I am. I'm digital, just like you.
Yeah, 100%. Next question.
This one's from Jason Beish in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Funny you should mention messaging security. Apple rolled out contact key verification intended to do precisely that. Do you think adoption of that sort of technology will just be rolled into future logins?
Yes. Yes, it's
good answer.
And here's okay. And let me expand on it a little bit. I believe it to be when Steve took the headphone jack out of the iPhone. We didn't know we wanted it. We didn't know we needed it. we were all up in arms when it happened. But as you guys were saying about an hour ago on our earlier segment, very rarely do we use wired. We're all wireless now, and we begrudgingly moved over to Bluetooth. We begrudgingly moved over to this wireless technology. So again, it's more of a seamless integration and utilization of technology, especially when you need to be secure. And we're talking specifically about Apple at this particular time because they are looking to lead the mainstream and lead the conversation around that side. So that's just another aspect of being secure in your own right.
And in some ways, as I'd continue to build an Apple moat, like this gets into the blue bubbles versus the green bubbles of, contact key could get to a point where, well, I know that you are you because you're on on an iOS or a Mac OS, and I don't know that you are you and I think that's when people say, why are they, if we're going to RCS, why are we still using green bubbles? But it's because Apple is only getting started, as far as
getting started.
And the hard part is that it's very hard to do that in a federated environment, right? Like it's very hard to create trust when you're going across a heterogeneous connection system.
I mean, think about that, right? Again, just we're talking about that because we're behind the scenes. We're from the administrative side and we're from the design side as well. But having that conversation for the consumer, again, from a usability perspective, picking up these devices and being able to access information and know, again, that I'm talking to who I'm talking to on the other end, or I'm sending my $50 to my kid and I know it's getting to them. That behind the scenes communication, connection, handoff, handshake is very, very complex to do. And to make it seamlessly to the end consumer, there are pros and cons to it, but again, there are consumers need to understand that, again, that is where we are, where we're going, and we have to have some of these frameworks and some of these boundaries in place to get to that point.
Next question.
This one's from Craig McFarlane in Boston, Massachusetts. What big company technology and approaches do you see becoming usable for smaller businesses?
What approaches?
Large companies have a lot of, heavy duty IT and security and so on and so forth. And a lot of times small businesses are still trying to figure it out. But it does feel like a lot of these things are becoming more available to, SMBs.
Well, yeah, you think about specializations actually becoming less and less important, right? Again, there are very few or fewer dedicated storage admins. No one's talking RAID levels anymore. No one's talking no one's talking some of the older legacy technology types of perspective. There are still DBAs. There are still folks that do those kinds of activities. But again, from a infrastructure and a technology perspective, we are all becoming generalists and knowing enough to be dangerous. But again, having that insight and using the tools, using AI, using algorithms, using whatever is out there from a process and planning perspective to know enough about the storage, and know enough about the network, know enough about the compute to get the job done and be efficient. So leveraging some of what was only available to the big guys, the big boys out there, and having those tools readily available, and actually more cost effective nowadays as well, right? As opposed to what it was to be an entrant back in the day to get into some of these tools and some of these capabilities. It's actually come down in terms of what that price versus what that cost is. So we're starting to see more folks, hopefully as well, level up their own training, level up their own expertise in their particular industry, and be less specialized and be more generalized, so they know a bit more of the overall organization. So like a business major is actually a strategic business management major as opposed to just micro or macro economics major. If you're doing marketing or economics, still stay in classes there. But again, understand how the overall business operates. Understand the operational piece. Understand the management pieces, understand fulfillment, understand finance, things of that. So again, being more generalist and knowing multiple pieces of an organization, I think that's starting to filter down more into the SMB marketplace as opposed to just being in the large-scale organizations.
Man, look at how easy some of this stuff has become. When I started doing e-commerce, this would have been 2001, when I started selling things online, And we wrote our own, or we hired somebody to write our own e-commerce system because, using the going rate was 25 to 28% to not do what Apple's doing. Apple does a lot of things, like a 30% or 15% or whatever. I'm talking about like to charge the credit card, send us an order that it happened, which we're still fulfilling physically, was 22 to 26%, and we got it down to 12%. And nowadays, you open up Squarespace, and then you open up a Stripe account, and later that afternoon, you're doing it for 2.5% or 3% or whatever, you just flip it on. So I think that, to your point, I think a lot of those things have gone from being really complicated and hard to something that you can just kind of, turn on, to make that.
Yeah. The barriers of entry have definitely come down, and it's almost, it's a good thing because there's less of an excuse now for folks who do want to be more entrepreneurial, who do want to fire up their own digital presence online or something of that nature. Those barriers of entry are no longer there. Heck, we no longer have to know how to write HTML to make a website, as you just said.
I opened up as a thought experiment. I opened up ChatGPT. I've mentioned this on the show before, but I opened up ChatGPT and said, "Write me a full description of the game Tetris," and it wrote the full description. I said, "Now write me Tetris in HTML," and it just said, "Here it is. Download this and put this in." I opened it up and started playing. It was literally like
my goodness.
It was just like, and it in 10 minutes I had to find and build a Tetris game. It wasn't a great one. I don't think I would sell it, but as far as but as you look through the code, it had figured out all the interface was bad, but all of the logic was there, and you could see how it figured that out.
I'm gonna try that with Doom. Remember Doom?
Oh yeah.
Okay. See, again, dating myself.
See what happens there. Yeah, that'd be fun. Doom. Anyway, we sat down and we played that. I played all of Doom in one day with 5 guys. We went and did like when it came out, we were all excited. I worked at a game company. We literally sat down, did not stand up for 12 hours. Like did not eat, did not do anything. Like we just played for 5 hours straight,
good times.
For 12 hours straight, and got to the end. The next question.
Jason Basha in Albuquerque, New Mexico is asking, might blockchains be a public, disintermediated way to let users finally set privacy preferences and know they'll be enforced everywhere? It's an idea I've been playing around with for the past year.
Where are we in the era of blockchains? Blockchains were nothing, and then they were everything, and now they're kind of like in between. You can't just say, it used to be that you could say, we're going to put it on the blockchain and raise $2 million. There was kind of that, and I think that the shine has worn off a little bit in that process.
And it's unfortunate because there's been a handful of very public instances where the blockchain has not failed, but just become under scrutiny.
Right.
And I wonder. I appreciate the question from Jason. It's a great question. I appreciate it, but I just wonder the adoption, right? Just again from a full-on majority perspective. Just because again, there's been so many public issues with access to data, losing the keys, whatever the case may be. There's been more. The positives and pros and the cons and the negatives and the pluses have just been kind of right in alignment with each other. I would love to see more wins. And again, the challenge with the blockchain, the challenge with that becoming more mainstream is, again, there's going to have to be maybe that oversight. And the blockchain environment, crypto environment, just those folks that are within that world are really trying to separate from a lot of that oversight, a lot of that regulation, right? Again, my data, my information, my money, my finance, let me do these transactions. I control that myself. I don't need X, Y, and Z overlooking what I'm doing. So again, I think there's going to have to be some kind of consensus or some time where they come to the bargaining table and figure that out. But I personally also would love to see more full on adoption of a blockchain methodology and mentality. So,
good, Jason. You want to add anything?
No, you basically got right to it. I know this is a far-flung and weird thing, but my immediate thought was now that blockchain is no longer put into everything, now that's AI. What can it actually be? What can it actually do that is truly useful, other than raise Bitcoin another $20,000.
See, I didn't want to say that part right there, but I'm glad you said it. But again, that's the interesting use case. That's the conversation I think that needs to happen, and it's not going to go away. It's just, again, where is it going to continue to evolve, and are we going to see more wins? Are we going to see more pros and more positives, as opposed to instances where the infrastructure, the environment has actually, I don't want to say collapsed, but I will say fell on 2 steps forward, 3 steps back kind of thing. So it's an interesting conversation. I don't know if it's as front of mind as it was within the last 5 years or so, to be honest with you, because again, AI is now taking over the conversation, and that is actually now where the majority of mindsets are. But
we just have to have AI generating blockchain.
Is that what we need to do?
AI generating blockchain or blockchain, validating AI, and then we're pulling it all together here. We add a little fusion power to it, and we're set. We're set.
We'll get on that. We'll get on that. We'll get that Mac Pro that you're going to get next year. We'll get that to run that.
Yeah, exactly. The good news is that, the blockchain takes finding money in the closet to a whole nother level. I had a friend who found his computer from 2012, and it turned out he had 19 Bitcoins that he had mined in 2012. Bought a house.
That is good stuff.
Generative AI. Where do you see that going?
Oh man, that's the next rocket. That is the rocket ship, right? And put your seatbelt on, because it started with creating images. Now we're creating video. Now we're using it to chop long form content and short form content for creators. I know you had Opus clip on last week. Now we're creating music as well. For one of the shows that I do on my channel, I've used Suno to I put in the prompt and told it what the description was. It spit out a music, could be a hit song. Right. So generative AI has gone from just playing and making cartoons and animations and things of that nature to where now we're actually using it for business-minded folks. Folks are using it as a replacement for maybe that graphic designer, using it maybe as opposed to that copy editor, creating conversation pieces, creating transcripts, creating. It's nothing's endless, but the possibilities are boundless in terms of where we're going to go. We haven't even scratched the surface.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I use Midjourney and Runway and a bunch of other ones pretty often. And what I notice is, like, so for instance, it's revolutionized my PowerPoint or my keynote presentations because there was all these things like when we do a show, a lot of times I have to show you, hey, there'll be 3 people talking, and then there'll be 2 people talking, and then this will be 1 person talking, and this is what it looks like when the questions pop up. And this is how, and it's all talking heads. It's all like what we see here.
Right.
And like, how do I customize the people that I put in the windows? I used to go to iStock Photo and I would spend $20 an image to grab images of people. And, this one is for this group. So I need people to look that way. And I need people to look this way. And I need diversity. And I need, of backgrounds and locations and people and everything else. How do I do that? So I sat down on a Saturday afternoon and made 2,000 headshots. And all their eyes are exactly at the same height. And they're all different backgrounds, but they're all different, with a handful of prompts. And I don't write good prompts. I evolve images. So what I do is I give it a simple prompt, and then I just tell it what I like, and I use evolution, So, and I evolve what I want it to look like, and as a result, I think that I got thousands of images. I condensed it down to 200 or 300, but now I have this template that I can just open up this keynote document, and I've got hundreds of people, and I'll go grab this one and this one and this one.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
That would have cost me thousands of dollars, you know. And anytime I want to do an example, I'm like I had one where I was talking about the evolution of communication, from hieroglyphics to paper to radio and TV and everything else. And I had funny little images that I made for all of those. And it's so much more interesting than whatever I was doing before. And I think that that's, my favorite part of a prompt is over a plain white background with 20% buffer. Or 20 pixel buffer, and so I get these little examples and I cut them out and I put them. I have this little library, but I think that is the those kinds of things. I think people think that it's going to take over entertainment, but it's that glue. I think right that is what's really useful right now.
Yeah, and you just gave a cheat code, right? So prompt engineering. Is really going to continue to evolve. And again, that's something I don't think we've really scratched the surface because no one really understands. No one knows how far we can take it. And again, each language, each model, the Groks, the Perplexities, the ChatGPTs, the Voilas, whatever, the Claudes, all of those, who knows what we can put in there and then what the result is going to be. And each time you put something in and make a tweak to it or make a change to that prompt that you engineer, it's going to come out different. So that's an exciting time. Again, that's how, again, leveraging technology and not being afraid of it, but actually taking advantage of it and seeing where it's going is really going to be an exciting time for us in the short and midterm.
Yeah, I mean, I try almost every day to leave a little bit of time. I don't schedule, I don't call it this, but I schedule into my time of creating a little wonder every day, and which means that I wonder what this would what this would look like, or I wonder how this would work, or whatever. And it's usually about an hour a day that I spend on just fiddling. I'm just gonna, and sometimes it's often even before the show that it happens. It's like 5 o'clock in the morning or whatever, and I'm fiddling around with something. But it's jumping into a new AI tool, or it's grabbing some hardware, or doing something else. But I don't have a reason for it. Like I don't have a deadline. I just want to play with the idea, like, I'm going to grab a book, and like when Notebook LM came out, I'm going to throw a book into Notebook LM and see what it does. Like, what does that and then when I got excited about it, I started throwing huge numbers of books, and then I tried to figure out how to hack all of my Kindles so I can get them all into which turns out to be harder than I thought. But I'm like, it's not that I bought all those books. I just want to process them, yes. And have that library of those things. So anyway,
again, being more efficient, right? If you got the tool, now you just want to be more efficient with it, right?
But some of the efficiency is playing, we
have to play,
that when you need it. You know how to do it. That's you don't figure it out on the day of the event. James, so great to have you.
This was, if my mom was watching, I would say, Mama, I've made it. Listen, I've hung out with Alex Lindsay after all these years. I appreciate you guys as well. This has been a great time.
Let's find a way to have more conversations together. This is really fun.
We'll make it happen.
All right, man. All right. And thanks so much to our producers out there watching and asking questions and keeping this conversation rolling forward. It's a really short conversation without your questions. It almost was a short conversation. I got in here and I was like, wow, there's not very many questions and not a lot were rolling in. There wasn't a lot. And I was like, but it'll work out. The producers will add more questions and it'll be great. And it was. And thanks to the panelists. Of course, we can't do this without you. Again, this is what makes the conversation work, is having all of you here in the first and the second hour. And thanks to the incredible development teams and management teams that make this happen. This is a small village that has to stand up every day, 7 days a week, to have this conversation. And we appreciate everybody's contribution. Now, the Tlaloc Traversal, if we had been doing this in person and walking around and having these questions, we would have traveled 50,000 miles. That's 80,000 kilometers. And that is 393 million bananas for scale. All right, let's go ahead and jump into After Hours. That was fun, James.
Thanks, James. That was great.
Thank you. I was wondering why Jason was with the banana, but now it makes
banana. Like, why is he holding up the banana at the end of the
I had to get my timing right. It's got to be early enough for you to think, what just happened? But right when Alex times it.
That was good. Appreciate you guys. And with the banana.